I'm Jim Klug, Director of Operations and founder of Yellow Dog Flyfishing. We're based in Bozeman, Montana, but we are a travel company that sends people all over the world in pursuit of great fishing, from saltwater to freshwater, domestic, and certainly a lot of international. Our goal is to deliver up the best possible fishing experiences no matter where on the planet you're looking to go. Several years ago, I was introduced to Bryant Dunn, and we started talking about his fishing operations here in Bhutan. We worked on putting a great trip together, dealing with all the logistics, putting together an amazing crew, and it finally all came together. We're here in Bhutan for a 2-week trip to explore the country, float some amazing waters, and chase Mahseer in the Himalayas.
Make cast just in the corner.
Good catch, good catch.
Bhutan. Its largest southern rivers hold 2 of the most remarkable species in the world, in my opinion, when it comes to fly fishing and target species. And specifically, those are the Golden Mahseer, Tora pudatora, and the chocolate Mahseer, Neolisicylus hexagonalepis. These are 2 of the most spectacular fish to pursue with a fly rod anywhere in the world. And they exist in Bhutan in numbers that are seen somewhere between nowhere else and very rarely along the Himalayan range. These rivers are pristine. And within the Mahseer world, there's a certain group of anglers, and it's a pretty small group, that is absolutely infatuated and in love with pursuing that species. These tend to be very accomplished anglers. These tend to be anglers who are not afraid of fishing for multiple days in a row without hooking up with the fish, because they know that when they work hard enough to do it, it's going to be essentially a spiritual experience to do this. So it was great to put together a group and visualize an expedition that would include some of those top Mahseer fishermen in the world. I mean, if you look at our list, you've got Jeff Currier, former IGFA world record holder and very experienced global angler, known to most fly fishermen around the world. You've got Bobby Satpal, who is the current IGFA world record, the most famous and accomplished guide in all of India. You've got Jigme Tsuendrup, who is a Bhutanese outfitter and one of the absolute top fly fishermen in the Kingdom of Bhutan. I've been working here for about 20 years and I like to fish here, and I'm in love with Mahseer as well. And you've got Jim Klug from Yellow Dog as well, Yellow Dog Fly Fishing, who's an exceptional hot rod, and that guy can throw a fly. And so he's over here with us. We're all doing it together, teaming up to show the world how cool it is over here, how exciting it is. Expedition fishing isn't for everybody, no way. But for the right kind of people, it can be life-changing, eye-opening beyond words. And to hook that first chocolate or that first golden on a fly and to come tight on that, to have your arm nearly ripped out of its socket because that's how strong these Himalayan monsoon fighting fish are, is a remarkable experience. And very few have experienced in the fly fishing world, and just about everyone oughta.
The first couple days of the trip were great because we weren't to the fishing portion of the adventure quite yet. So we were traveling around, we were taking in the sights. That's so great, thank you. That's a great hat. We all knew that the fishing was coming and we were all excited about that. And most of the conversations would inevitably shift back to to fishing talk, to comparing notes on Mahseer, discussing the expectations of the adventure ahead. But those first few days of just hanging out, reconnecting, catching up, that was a lot of fun. And it's really, I think, one of the best takeaways of trips like this is, you know, not just the places you're going, but certainly the people you're spending time with. This was an absolutely great group to do that, to travel with. You know, Jeff, who he and I have known each other for 30 some years and traveled all over the world together. Bobby Satpal from India, who we first met when he was a new young guide on the Saryu, and Jeff and I got a chance to fish with him in the very beginning. 10 plus years ago, we were working on a film project. Jeff was going to be kind of the featured angler.
A self-described international angling nomad, Jeff has traveled the world and chased fish in places that few people would even think about visiting.
It's interesting. The last time I was here in the Himalayas filming, we were in India, and old Bobby was there. You know, Bobby Satpal was he was technically our guide, but he was so young, he was so green. I think the first day he came out and started, you know, kind of trying to guide me, I was like, all right, kid, here's what we're gonna do. Keep telling me what you know, but I'm gonna piece together, you know, what I've learned over the years. And you know what, the cool thing about Bobby, he was, even at a very young age, was on point. He's like, yeah, this is cool. This guy does have a little idea what's going on. I'm gonna learn from him and he's gonna learn from me. And we did, we were like a great team. And I've thought about Bobby. I follow him, Bobby, on Instagram, and he's become one of the, since that trip, which was 2013, one of the authorities on Mahseer fishing in the world with a fly rod. Man, what a treat, what a great guy, what a cool experience to see him develop into this just icon in Mahseer fishing.
When I meet Jeff Currier first time, I'm very exciting, and especially when I see how they make cast and all is unbelievable for me. He's give always very good advice for me about fishing. That's a very, very nice.
So a few days into the trip, we left Punakha and we headed off towards the river, and we met up with the final member of our group, Jigme, who is just an incredible individual. He has so much energy, so much enthusiasm.
It's a party night, right?
But he was the final player on the team that would be joining the fishing expedition. And he was absolutely great. Ironically, Jigme and Jeff had met on Jeff's first trip to Bhutan about 10 years before this visit, when Jigme was pretty new to the fishing.
Yeah, Jigme is another amazing story because I met him a year after I met Bobby, and because I came to Bhutan for my first time, and I came over on a project for the World Wildlife Fund. They were over here trying to stop a dam, and in order to do that, they had to prove this river had Golden Mahseer, which is, you know, a protected species, as it should be. And we came over, and Jigme was our host. Jigme was just a young kid, full of energy. I think he had to have been in his late 20s at that time, and but zero knowledge of fly fishing. He knew nothing, and but I got to say, very good with his conservation. He knew his birds, he knew his animals, very cool. So he was excited to be part of this project. And long story short, we did a 10-day float trip on the Manis River. There were some tough times, and Jigme was like watching. He's like, "Can I try this?" "Yeah, I don't know, man. All right, we'll show you how to cast." Picked it right up, and then he was out there fishing with us. And I don't think he caught a fish, but he never put the rod down. In fact, it's funny, he was so into trying, and we were catching some fish on occasion. Like I said, they're not easy. He was so into trying and spent so much time out there. I remember that our head guy from the World Wildlife Fund was like, listen, kind of got reprimanded. It's like, dude, you're not here to fish. You're supposed to be, you know, doing this, that, and that. And I remember telling the guy, I'm like, listen, this is an addiction, and he's got it now. It's gonna be good down the road because this kid lives here, and if he falls in love with Mahseer like we want people to do so, it's gonna be a really good thing. And here we are 10 years later. He's guiding from Mahseer, he's promoting Mahseer, he's telling locals about how important it is not to net the Mahseer. It's incredible. I'm so excited to see it. And you know what? He's a good caster. He's a good fisherman. I mean, he's launching.
So somehow I got involved in going along with them on the river. I don't know, it just clicked. I feel that there is some connections between me and the fish, not so much of fishing. Fishing is just the medium that took me down to fish. and where I now believe it's not just fishing for me. The fish is basically my another brother or my life or my partner or my friend or whatever you call me, a family. Fishing was just a tool for me to get to the fish and understand more about it, to love and care more about it, to try and protect that fish, to understand how this could benefit the entire community, the Bhutan as a whole and all of it. This is where I believe it made me a better person by knowing fishing and to know the fish and all this.
We left Punakha to begin the float trip, and you drive about 3 hours, and as you travel south through the countryside, it's spectacular. You drive through these incredibly deep gorges and these windy mountain roads up over these huge passes where you're surrounded by the Himalayas. The sights are spectacular. There's temples and monasteries and prayer flags all over the country and all over the roadside. It's really an incredible sight to see. One of the most colorful, exotic places I think you'll find anywhere. We finally rolled into the put-in area after a stop for a quick lunch at a roadside market. We stocked up on some last-minute provisions, and then we hit the put-in where we met up with the entire river team. Everything's repacked into dry bags. You figure out exactly what you want to have on the water for the next 6 days. Everything else is left behind with the vehicles. But the put-in is always an energetic spot. Everybody's really excited to get started. Everybody's ready to push off, and you know, we've seen a lot of sights over the previous few days. We've visited a lot of temples, but now everybody's ready to fish. And you know, as much as we love the cultural aspect of these adventures, you know, in the end, the fishing is a pretty big part of it. So boats are loaded, and we finally push off and begin what's going to be an incredible 6-day journey through some waters that we've never seen before. So what do you say about Jeff Currier as an angler? He's kind of in a league of his own. Without question, Currier is one of the fishiest people I've ever been around. And when people talk about someone being fishy, it's like, yeah, they went out, they had a good day, you know, they put up some big numbers, or they caught a big fish. You know, that's being a good angler, but that doesn't necessarily make you fishy. And there's something that Jeff has that's just this inherent element of who he is. And I've seen it all over the world for all different types of species. He is just a fishy individual. This trip was no exception. I think we were day one, probably 2 hours after launching the boats. Currier's in the lead boat, I'm in the second boat, and it comes over the radio, hey, Currier's got a monster fish on, big goldie, you know, move on down, let's take a look. And I wasn't the least bit surprised, because this is what Currier does.
You want to get out of the boat? Eventually, yes. If you want to get a little closer, that'd be good.
He really takes it to that next level, and that's just kind of who he is and an inherent skill set that he has. I've met a handful of people over the years that are truly fishy individuals, and Currier is at the top of that list, especially when it comes to any country, any species, any type of water. He's the kind of guy that can really get it done. I've learned over the years that when you go on these trips, just because you're in an amazing location does not mean you're going to catch that amazing fish. Whether you're on a peacock bass trip doesn't mean, just because you paid whatever, doesn't mean you're going to catch a 20-pound peacock. Just because you're in Africa doesn't mean you catch a giant tiger fish. So I always look at, like, the first day is just as important as every other day of the trip, and I show up with my game face.
Where are you, Jigme? Come on!
I think we even joked about it around the dinner table the night before. You know, somebody said, "So Curry, you got any tips for this trip?" And I was like, I looked around the table, real firm. Tomorrow it could happen. Make sure you're ready.
Okay, now he's the now I'm gonna dive.
No, don't dive. Do not dive. We took it a step further. The fish kicked my butt, but we landed him. We had a little net fiasco.
No, don't dive. Do not dive. Put his head in the net. All right, I'm gonna put him on shore.
Big fish. I was in disbelief.
That's big.
Oh, boys. Yeah. Good catch. Jigme.
When you have that fish in your hand and everybody's looking at it, it's not just beautiful, but there's kind of a presence. There's like a feeling, there's something in the air where everybody can feel that you're holding the king of the river in your hand. I know I felt it. It was a gift from the fish gods. When you fish enough, you get them sometimes.
When you start fishing, especially if you start fish on the tributary, which is there is full with fish, but you have to start fishes very, very quietly because Mahseer is very, very shy. He is very, very shy, and Mahseer you never catch like 10 or 15 fish in the day. You catch 1 or 2 or 3 fish if you are very lucky. I thought maybe I hook definitely some big fish. When I go there, I'm not hook really big fish, but I hook like 5-6 pound, but it's very good fun. That's a very nice experience. The main thing of Mahseer is the color of it is so nice because golden color, you see the black stripes, it's like unbelievable, so beautiful.
Well, I've been really lucky to be involved in some of the scientific research done over here in the kingdom, specifically by Fisheries Conservation Foundation, in conjunction with the Bhutanese government. So what we've been doing is running radio telemetry studies here. What we learned from that, which we did not know before, no one knew before, were the migratory patterns of golden and chocolate mahseer. And what we learned is they do migrate north in these southern rivers up to about 1,000 meters above sea level, about 3,000 feet above. They won't go higher than that. And so when you get to that elevation, all the way south to the Indian border, that's when you're talking mahseer country. And so we also learned that these fish, other than being migratory, return to the same tributary systems every year to spawn. And they do that during the monsoon season. So now we know so much more about these fish, and once you understand the fish, their life cycles, their migratory patterns, and all of it that goes with being a mahseer, that allows you to be a much more effective outfitting business to pursue those species when you know where they are and when they're there.
So Bryant has built something pretty incredible over here since he first came to Bhutan more than 20 years ago, and that has not been easy. Of course, when you're starting a business, a sport fishing endeavor like this, you're dealing with government, you're dealing with fisheries, you're dealing with forestry. You're also dealing with a lot of religious aspects. The Buddhist culture is not one that is really naturally comfortable with angling, with going out and putting hooks into fish's mouths for fun.
So thinking about recreational angling in a Buddhist country, it presents some challenges and that could be seen as conflicts. But when viewed from a perspective of the greater good, honestly, I don't think there are. And it's important for us to share this message whenever we can, that if you hook a fish or two here and there with barbless hooks and release them, the fish mortality is essentially zero. With a catch and immediate release, per the regulations of the kingdom, you're just not going to lose any fish that way. However, understanding that recreational angling brings so many benefits to any country that it occurs in, specifically revenue streams through the tourism sector, the pescatourism sector. It's not just the fishing guides and the fishing outfitters, it's the hotels, it's the food and beverage suppliers, it's the drivers of your vehicles, it's the national airline. It goes on and on and on. And perhaps more importantly than any of that, it's the financial benefit that comes through conservation and fisheries conservation, not only to the rivers and the fish that live within them, but to the human populations that live along those rivers and know those rivers best. None of that happens without fishing. None of that happens without catch and release angling. And so it's a much bigger picture than just a hook in the mouth. And if we can preserve and conserve the rivers of Bhutan and the fish that live within them, we have created something very magical and very special, very much, I think, in the spirit of Buddhism and the kingdom's best interests.
This is what makes me mesmerized, like just watching this river going down, fish coming up on the surface. You see where the nature is, nobody disturbs, nobody is there to actually bother you. This is what we want, everybody, right? As a human also, we want that. We don't want people bothering you so much. But why would you like to bother nature too? Just be intact, be in harmony with them, and I think that's where we say in our prayers, let us be birthed as an animal if we can't be born as a human in this country under our leadership, like our kings, forefathers. This is what we always pray at the end of our day. Because this is where the heaven is.
You know, I think it's getting harder and harder these days to find things that are truly untouched and somewhat unexplored. And yeah, I mean, there's been anglers that have come over to Bhutan and fished some of these rivers and explored some of these waters. You know, John Bailey, Oliver White, Mike Dawes, these guys have been over once or twice in the past, and they've caught some Mahseer, but most of this country is still totally untouched. It's totally unexplored. And you feel that way when you get here. It's getting harder and harder these days, I think, to find fisheries and on-water experiences where you feel like you're still really at the cutting edge of things. You're still exploring things. And Bhutan certainly is that kind of destination. So one of the really cool aspects about these river trips is on these Himalayan rivers, there's some big whitewater. There are some pretty tricky sections here. You're always wearing a PFD. They've got a safety kayaker, they've got throw bags, they've got a whole protocol for how to hit these technical sections of whitewater. There's one section that was kind of a borderline class 5, pretty monstrous piece of whitewater. We all got out of the boats, a lot of the crew got out of the boats. You carry you know, a lot of the equipment around, but they run the boat straight through it. And it was fun sitting up on those rocks, photographing and filming these guys as they came through boat by boat. They all made it pretty cleanly. Bryant definitely had the spiciest run through just an absolute boat-eating monstrous hole. He was rowing one of the pontoon gear boats solo, blew an oar just as he was dropping into the hole, got sideways, and we thought he was going over for sure. We weren't so sure Bryant was coming back out, but lo and behold, he did. First of all, we saw, you know, the handle of the oar sticking up and then the top of his helmet, and boom, he gets poked out the other side. He was pretty unhappy with his run. You know, he's an experienced boatman, and he likes a good, clean run through the direct line. But it just goes to show that, you know, these rivers are tricky and they are unpredictable, and no matter how much experience you have, you got to be prepared out there because anything can happen. You know, everybody got through it. It ended up being a good experience, but boy, you do not take these rivers lightly. So a typical day on the river usually begins pretty early. Oftentimes the evening's campsite is at a tributary mouth where you have a small stream that's flowing into the bigger river. And Mahseer love confluences. They love tributaries where that fresh, cold water is flowing in. Even if it's a tiny waterfall or a small spring that's trickling in, oftentimes that's where the Mahseer are gonna hold. So the optimal campsite is something that's close to a tributary. The mornings start early, usually when it's still dark. You might be up at 5:30. You grab a cup of coffee, you grab your rods, and as soon as you're legally allowed to start fishing at sunrise, you're out there swinging flies in that water. It usually is about a 2-hour session, and then you come back, you sit and have a great breakfast, as much food as you can eat, and then they start breaking camp and loading the boats. From there, you begin what might be a 3-kilometer to 10-kilometer float for that day's section. And what's so unique about this program is oftentimes a lot of these kind of jungle trips, they use the boats to go from point A to point B, and then you get out and fish. Well, here with these boats that Bryant and the crew have, full fishing frames, they're designed for fishing while you're on the move. This is very similar to like a Western float trip. Maybe you're on the Missouri or the Yellowstone, but you're standing up, 2 anglers are fishing the whole time as you're traveling down the river. And it's super effective, especially for chocolate Mahseers. Yes, you always stop and you cherry pick some of these really juicy runs and some of the sweet spots where you have fresh water flowing in and little tributaries. But as you're moving throughout these sections, each day of the float, you're fishing the entire time and you're finding fish. That's the great thing. The chocolate Mahseers are in a specific type of water. They tend to be, kind of faster water against the banks. They love that structure. And so you're, mainly fishing streamers, just pounding those banks, again, like you would on a Western river, and you're moving fish, you're hooking fish, it's great. The Golden Mahseer, they oftentimes tend to sit in a little different water. Maybe it's a little more mellow, it's not quite as fast, but there's a little depth change there, and that's where you tend to find most of the goldies. So it's great. You're fishing the whole time, you're fishing from the boat, you're stopping, you're working specific sections really thoroughly and really carefully, and then you get to the next camp. Everything's set up, you're fishing the next tributary, you fish until sunset, you settle in for a great night, an amazing meal of Bhutanese cuisine, which, it's unbelievable food. I will tell you, if you enjoy spicy food, this is your country. Everything other than maybe the breakfast porridge is incredibly spicy, which is fantastic. Maybe that and the coffee, that's about it. Everything else has got a high spice factor, so you're gonna love that. But no, it's amazing, sitting by the campfire out at night and hanging out with buddies and just kind of reflecting on the day and sharing some photos and some great stories from your time on the water. That's really what river trips are all about. And whether you're somewhere in the States or you're in South America or you're here in the middle of the Himalayas, those river trips are really, really special.
Chocolate Mahseer is unbelievable. That's it's very nice because I done lots of chocolate Mahseer in India. I done lots of chocolate Mahseer fishing in Arunachal Pradesh, North India. But here is very nice because all fish sit under the rocks and under the trees is like unbelievable. To catch chocolate Mahseer is a good fun, and the main thing is most of the time you side fishing, which is very nice. Make cast just on the corner, right side of the corner.
It's a great fish. It's a Mahseer, but it acts differently, and the way it's different is you throw your fly to where there's a couple chocolates, they're gonna eat it.
Such a focus right now on Golden Mahseer is this highly sought after species on a fly rod, and we came here with that in mind, to hunt the Goldens on these rivers of southern Bhutan. One of the neatest things that's surprising about this fishery, however, is the incredible population of chocolate Mahseer. And I had never caught a chocolate Mahseer before this trip, and they are stunning. The turquoise and the blues and the greens that are part of their scales, all the different elaborate patterns on their gill plates and along their cheeks, they are spectacular. And when you hook one, they are tough as hell. They are strong, they pull hard. You're fishing for most of these fish on a 9 weight, sometimes with a floating line, but oftentimes with a sink tip, like an intermediate sink or a 300 grain, and you're down in their world. And when they hit one, oftentimes it just about yanks the rod out of your hand, and then the fight goes on from there.
They're more like a brown trout. They live in the back eddies where there's some logs and rocks. Your fly hits the water and they hear it and come out and nail it. And they're substantial fish. We all saw it. I mean, I caught a fish that blew my mind. It was a 26-inch chocolate Mahseer, probably weighed 11, 12 pounds. And it smoked me. I mean, we're out in the river, it looked like a circus trying to net this thing.
So the Bhutanese government actually measures gross national happiness, which I think is such a cool aspect of this country. I mean, it really matters, and they focus on that. And you can tell with the people. This is truly one of the happiest places I've ever visited. And I think it's kind of fitting. It's one of the reasons I love adventures like this so much. I mean, this to me is, this is what makes me happy, is coming to a new place, being with great friends, fishing new waters for the first time. It's why I kind of got into this all those years ago, and it's what we've worked hard to build up over these years. We're in a business of booking fishing trips, of handling logistics, of getting people from point A to point B. That is kind of the essence of what Yellow Dog does. But for me, it's always been about delivering happiness. And when you can send people out on these adventures to new parts of the world, whether it's for a few days or for a couple of weeks, maybe they get to do it several times a year, or this is going to be that true one trip of a lifetime. Being able to send people out and deliver experiences that make them happy is probably the most rewarding part of this job. And it's something that our whole team at Yellow Dog really pays attention to. I mean, it's something we care about, and we want people not just to see these places, but to really love their time out there. I mean, because there is nothing better than when something all comes together. And it's rarely about the fish you catch, but it's about the places that fishing takes you, and the experiences that you collect, and your takeaways from your time on the water. It's, yeah, I know that's what makes me happy.